Okay, reverse engineering the quadratic equation. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know I don't like it anymore when we just use equations without questioning how we get them and assume they're right. So we use this one in, I don't know, starting in high school, I guess. I use it all the time. And where does it come from? Who says? Says who? It comes from here, and this is the situation when we're using it, when we have a quadratic. And what you ought to be able to do, I suppose, is to go from this and derive that equation, which is very difficult to do because you have to have several flashes of insight to do it, and you're probably not going to get there. So what I'll do, is something much, much simpler, and we'll reverse engineer this one and show how it comes from here. And then you could always work it backwards once you've done it reverse, or actually work it forwards once you've done it reverse. So the first thing is you got this equation, and we'll bring this 2a up here by multiplying, and get this. We'll get 2ax equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. So we'll take this to the next page. And here it is. And we'll bring the b over here by adding on both sides. Now we got 2ax plus b equals the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And we'll take that part to the next page. Up at the top, there it is. And we'll just square both sides. We can square this side, square this side. We'll solve a lot of problems. And if we go ahead and write this out, we're ready to perform our square. And that binomial you learned in math that you never thought you'd use for anything real, there it is. So we're going to run a binomial. So up at the top we have it, so let's expand that. We're going to multiply these two, multiply these two, multiply these two, multiply these two. Nothing's happening over here on this side. It's just sitting there waiting. And when we do that, we end up with 4a squared x squared plus 2abx plus another 2abx to b squared, and these two 2abx's combined to make a 4abx. And this other side's still sitting there. So let's start with the 4's here on the next side. Go to the top of the next page. There it is. It's the same thing written down. Just copied and pasted. And I can subtract b squared off both sides and get rid of that. I can add a 4ac to both sides and get this over here. And that's what I have on this line. And then it's just take a 4a out, so I've got that one minus, okay, and then a 4a and then a 4a, and then we have what we're after, a squared plus bx plus c. Now, that's actually pretty easy. I mean, it's a fairly good 8th grader or freshman in math that knew what they were doing could pull that off. The reverse is much harder because you have to start with this and try getting the binomial and keep realizing you're ending up with quarters and things, and that you're much better off to multiply everything by 4 to start. And then you have to realize that you've got to get a binomial out of that somehow, okay? Because you got a square root in there, so it must have come from some squares. And so what you do is you get the 4ac over here and another, bring in a b squared on each side. And that's about where I got stuck. I didn't get any farther than that, going backwards, or going forwards, actually. So once you come up with those two things, this one's not so bad because you run into that right away. It takes a little bit of work to figure out how to get your b squared in there so you can get a binomial. But then it gets stuck. Then you got to work backwards and split this 4abx and realize what equation or what's giving you that. Now, you've probably worked some of those backwards in math, and yeah, that's a hard thing to do. It's especially a hard thing to do when in the book it's not so bad, here's the problem, do some more like it. when you got to realize what you have to do without any cues, that's much harder to do. And then backing that up, okay, realize that comes from a square, and then going over. Yeah, that's a lot of steps to figure out, but you can kind of work that backwards and see how they've got that, but that is much, much harder. So that's where it comes from. So no, it doesn't fall out of the sky. It is valid, and now we can use it with clear conscience.